end of the day, funding is required to bring about that development that we seek in education sector rather. So if we do not talk about how the trade will happen, how governments will get the best from its trade dealings, then the funding might not come. Recently, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has been talking about his plans to impose tariffs, duties on countries that trade with America. And you know that there is the principle of reciprocity, which means that for every foreign policy of one country, the target country or countries has the right to have a retaliatory policy in the bid to protect themselves. But the DG of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, is admonishing that countries do not resort to tit-for-tat trade policies, meaning the war should not go into trade wars because it will not augur well for the world economic system. Now, she made this appeal at the ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. I'm going to go first to Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala appealing against tit-for-tat trade policies. What's your take?
Well, I don't know. I'm a complete realist. I believe in power politics. And to that extent, I feel that, Alfred Nobel once argued, if everybody has the arm, we come to a round table so that we are not mutually destroyed. And I think that's the point, which, of course, Donald Trump alluded to, that America wants to maintain its sovereignty. And yesterday, while addressing the Davos conference, he made two significant remarks in that address. The first is that America wants to retain its sovereignty. And number two, he also alluded to the fact that Europeans don't allow American goods into their environment. But the American door is open wide to the European goods. They bring their cars into America, but American companies that are operating in Europe, that there are phantom court cases against them that are costing them billions. He mentioned Facebook, he mentioned Google, he mentioned Amazon, that are heavily fined by court orders in Europe, including the tariffs that are placed on them. And so what he's simply saying is that if we're all friends, as we are saying, then we could allow free trade to happen. You are not allowing our goods into your country, but your goods is coming into our country. And so he is not against business people, he is against political leaders. And if you have a product that you want to sell in America, it's better for you to produce it in America somewhere. In which case, we will give you tax holiday that you cannot find anywhere in the world. But if you don't want to come to America and you want to, then of course America will not hesitate in making so much money from you. And that's because there's alternative on the ground. Like I've always said, foreign policy of any nation is just an extension of their domestic policy. So we're looking at what is happening elsewhere. And you're saying, oh, fold your hands, pray to God, while people are cashing out and making money and building their economy, your infrastructure, you cannot raise it. And then you are left with nothing but to hope on to a deity who may come to solve your case. And I think that's the kind of case that the WTO DG is making. So I feel that, yes, if Donald Trump say, oh, well, for your product to entitle me, I have a tariff. If you need me, I need you. And then, of course, we can have a war that is equitable, but not lopsided. Yesterday, he spoke also to the issue of the one-sided, according to him, of the Paris Green Agreement, which is not take into consideration auto industry in other places. And you're asking me to buy your electric vehicle, but you're not buying my petrol vehicle. So that can't work. So I think that what Donald Trump is pushing for is fairness. And I don't see it as if it's a revenge or a tooth-for-tat kind of an argument, but having an equitable world where everybody is accommodated and people do things fairly with themselves and nobody is losing to any other. Because he made mention that America is owing close to $300 trillion trying to do all this. And that is not a debt that is sustainable, and they must find a solution to deal with their domestic problem. You can't be good outside and then horrible and bad at home.
Now, the DG of the WTO cited the incident that took place in 1930 when an American president at that time raised tariff on over 20,000 imported goods, and that saw retaliation from different countries as well and resulted to a global trade war. So she's trying to forestall a recurrence of that. But like I've asked, is the appeal strong enough to deter countries that are targeted by Trump's planned tariff hike from retaliating, making their own tariff hike policies?
Okay, now, the spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Nao Ming, she said that trade wars are not won by any party when we go into them. Some sort of a diplomatic response, even though she did not mention the United States and the words that were coming out from the current president of the United States of America, but just putting in a subtle word that, look, where you're going to, you know the game. Nobody wins in this arena. So I think you should douse it down. You should mellow down. Of course, we know she's referring to Mr. President of the United States of America. The United States is very, very close to Canada. Canada, China, the European Union are the highest trading partners with the United States government. And Mr. Trump has said that the United States Treasury's, Ministry departments and agencies to review the trade that exists between American partners to know where the inconsistencies are so they can be addressed. Justin Trudeau said he's going to respond to Mr. Trump's imposition of tariff, that Ottawa is already preparing its response in billions. That's what he said. And I don't, while Trump is trying to put America first, we all know where protectionism will lead America to. America is a country where everybody wants to relate with because of world power, but America should not forget that they have, it's a high competition on the global politics. China is there, Russia is there, and these two guys have been infiltrating or penetrating Africa and other continents. Nigeria is going there, or it's already there, even though its category of partnership or membership has some form of relationship that it's not really a core member. South Africa is there. Iran is there. Other countries will be running down there. So America, in trying to put America first or practice protectionism, should not completely isolate itself or make itself enemies of its partners in the global arena, because it's going to have a bad taste for America. It's going to have that. And Trump should not see America some 30 years ago the way it was with the way America is right now, because the competition is quite high and the competitors have really covered ground.
There is already high competition already.
What Trump is saying is asking for a world where there is justice. And I think that's fundamental. And I'm actually expecting that African countries also must begin to respond to what I will call the European conspiracy against the rest of the world. Getting access into Europe is a problem. And Trump also mentioned that. You come to America when you like, but people get through hell to get into Europe, to even do business. So these are the things that you are saying. You are saying, oh, you don't want trade wars. Then if you are going to equity, your hands have to be clean.
Now,
and I think that is what the war should be all about. For me, we're looking at a world that is equitable, where what is good for the goose is also good for the gander.
Now, in having that justice system prevail in the world, does that not mean that countries like Canada, which Priya said, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, said Canada will retaliate, China and US, oh, those ones, they've been having trade wars and they had lots during the first administration of Trump. There was so much trade war between China and US. So it is expected that China already is preparing their own new tariffs for the US. And then Mexico. Now, talking about Europe and other parts of the world, if that justice system that you claim Trump is about begins to happen, it then means that there is going to be a full-blown global trade war. You're asking that Africa should begin to take their own. I know that when two elephants fight, the grass suffers first. Before we talk about Africa having their own trade policies to protect Africa, let's look at the feasibility of Africa even doing that. In this fight of elephants, who is likely to be the grass that will suffer in this?
Yeah, let me give you a very small story about Alfred Nobel and the Peace Prize. Alfred Nobel came up with a gunpowder, produced the dynamite, and this was during the interwar years in Europe, and everybody had access to gunpowder. And at a certain point when the interwar was on its roof, some leaders came to him to say, well, church leaders, to say, Nobel, this is not right. You are giving people guns to kill themselves. And then Nobel replied that you have been preaching peace for all you care, but the war had not stopped. And he feels that a better way to end war is to arm everybody, so that when everybody are equally empowered, we will have respect for each other. And then we come to a round table and we will settle our conflicts without a bullet. And that's how Alfred Nobel came about in his will for the Peace Prize, that is empowering nations to have the capability to compete. And I think in a world that is so driven, remember during Biden's regime, the Secretary of Commerce actually went to China. And even the European Union were threatening China with tariffs because that they were working toward a global monopoly. That if only China is the country that is prosperous, using the word of the Secretary of Commerce under Joe Biden, then the rest of the world will be in anguish of misery. Now, what does this mean? Is to say that, yes, you can talk about a collective. What Trump is saying is that let's review all our agreements. He talks about NATO. That before he came to the first tenure in NATO, for example, only American fought NATO.
Now, let's look at the implication of these new tariffs and levies that will commence on February 1 as opposed to day one of Trump's administration like he had promised. What could be the implication on American consumers and goods that are likely to suffer this increase? Are there alternatives? Is America preparing for alternatives to this? For instance, gas. Just in last year alone, America spent $97 billion on gas from Canada. Are they planning to create substitutes for this should goods from these countries become very expensive for American consumers to purchase? Car parts and all are going to be affected. So, do you think the U.S. might just be shooting themselves in the foot at the end of the day?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's just going to be a game of negotiation. And at the end of the day, what you get, and that's the plan of the US, is a drop in taxes so that industries in America that are dying because of cheap goods that are coming from elsewhere that are supported by their nations do not eventually do American economic damage, creating high level of employment, infrastructural deficit and gaps. And so he's thinking that as a nation, yes, you don't want me to do anything, but I can allow my people to suffer so that the other part of the world can have some peace and have some prosperity. And I don't think that's justice, and that's the point I was making earlier, that you need a world that's equitable. That when we are dealing with ourselves, the cash should be on the table. Why you are advocating that, oh, by 2030, you don't want petrol car in your place, and you are already positioned to sell electric cars, and I have petrol under my feet, that's not fairness. So what he's saying, I'm going to do my petrol car, even if you're not going to buy it, your electric car that's coming to my country, I'm going to put a tariff on it. So what I feel that the American president is actually offering the world and putting it on the table is the fact that we need a world where common sense works.
Okay. In this common sense, now the target countries for now, China, Canada, Mexico, a lot of manufacturing companies, yes, a lot of manufacturing companies are in China. Do you foresee a situation where, in a bid to evade these tariffs, some of these companies move away from these areas to countries that don't have as much high tariff?
No. I think America is a very big market. You can accommodate to them.
I'm talking about the production companies now.
Yes.
Moving away from China, moving to some countries that do not have high tariffs imposed on them.
You know, these manufacturing companies are still going to make their profit because they'll pass the bulk. They'll pass the bulk to the final consumers. Now, let's remember that Trump, in the first place, said about 60% during his campaign. And now, after he has become president, he said 10%. So you can see he's lenient enough. And the negotiation has already started. He's only saying 25% for Canada, for Mexico and the European Union because he felt, I think there's fentanyl coming in from China to America, but not directly because of the goods that are imported from China to Canada to European Union and to Mexico will find their way to United States of America. That's why it's raising that of China, that of Mexico to 25% and that of Canada to 25%. I know what Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala she's trying to do. She doesn't want what preceded the Second World War to happen again, because this is how it started. And we can see already that BRICS, the presence of BRICS alone, you can see countries alignment, realignment, joining one organization where you know, global organizations where you know countries of this category belongs here and America is standing here. America was, of course, never going to be part of BRICS. You see Russia there, you see China there, you see India there, you see Brazil there. So it's getting to that extent. And these wars, that's where it started, trade wars. Yes, the Chinese foreign minister office is saying, no, there will be no victor, there will be no vanquish. However, it's going to be having its toll. Like you said, the grass will suffer on other continents. Nigeria, the Latin America, they are going to suffer. So whilst Trump is going this direction, and I hope China will equally understand the perspective from which Doc is speaking to, that look, we want our local industries, to be able to stand on their feet, and they will not see Trump's disposition as a war, but rather as a table for negotiation. Maybe it's because of the way Trump is putting it out. And Trump is this kind of person. He says it the way it is. It doesn't bulge. The reason why he's saying that, because recently, another woman who is like a cleric, there was a service, and the Trump administration, the vice president and other functionaries of government was there, and she was, telling Trump to be merciful. She was telling Trump to be merciful, and that at the moment, people are afraid, people are scared. The lesbians, the gay community, they are scared. The immigrants who are not well documented from Africa, from Nigeria, who are currently in America, working as gardeners, working as domestic staff, they are scared because of the Trump administration and what has preceded its emergence as president. So that we should be very, very careful in dealing with these people. Of course, you can see the video, Trump turned his face and looked at us and like, no, I don't think you know what you're saying. But so at least the United States president is still going to, most of his executive actions are going to face legal hurdles. And I hope his administration is prepared for that.
While talking...
I wanted to just respond to read a post earlier this morning by one of our bishops in the United States of America, who said that Bishop Obuji would have been much more very straightforward than to go to blackmail the president on the stage. That she actually was the one who needed to have shown mercy to people who, within his denomination, that differed from their opinion. Many of them he still legal cases against in terms of speaking in the area of church. But you see, that's just an agenda. But there's something that I also want to speak to, which of course our very revered queen of economists, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, spoke to, the reason around the Second World War. Again, and I think that even this council is more to Europe and to China. Because when you look at the circumstances that surrounded the Second World War, it was a vengeance of Europe against Germany that actually led to the hostilities. When, of course, after the loss of the Axis power in the First World War, a huge a reparation payment was put on Germany that worsened the economy of Germany to the point that money became valueless in terms of inflation. And then, of course, that saw the emergence of Adolf Hitler, who rose to defend Germany. So if you put that vis-a-vis what data that is on the front, has Facebook been charged in Europe and in England? Yes. Had Amazon been fined by court? Yes. Had all the companies that belong to the American been exploited in Europe? Yes. Now, these are the questions that are on the front burner. Now, if they're doing all that and think that America will not respond, and then Trump says it's not me, because I was elected by my people to represent their interests. And I think other nations must also come to the table and put things on the cards on the table so that negotiation can go on. One of the things that stunned me about what Donald Trump says is the fact that he's not going to flaunt his strength to oppose anybody, but he wants to use his strength to bring about peace in the world. And I heard him speaking about Saudi Arabia, because it's not just about China and Canada. That it was quite disrespectful for Saudi Arabia not to think about bringing the price of oil down when he had won election, but he was driving it up. And therefore, he's going to release oil and not buy from them so that the price of oil can go down. That is good news for the world, I guess. That what is actually about, for me, as far as I'm concerned, is fairness, is allowing just common sense to have its way. That God created one man, a woman, man and a woman, that is obvious. And then we don't need any theorization to add 50 more gender to the two that already exist. So let the world be governed by justice. Let it be governed by fairness. Let everybody have protection so that nobody is exploited at the mercy of others.
You do know that there are several interpretations of justice. To someone who's, or to a country who's affected by this or going to be affected by the tariff hike when it commences on February 1, justice may mean, okay, in this other area, you can retaliate in this other area. Because a top EU official has said that Europe would respond in a proportionate way to all of Trump's new tariffs and levies and some policies that he's coming up with. What that would mean, I think time will just reveal that. But there was another thing that Okonjo-Iweala also said while she was admonishing. She was saying that she was telling countries that they should not just wake up without doing the groundwork and begin to implement their own policy. Now, in that, there's a lot of wisdom. Could it be that countries might take rash decisions that could even hurt them just in a bid to retaliate?
Yeah, of course. We have seen that happen over time. Even the war against Russia was not thought out by Europe.
All right, we hope
Who
that...
dragged America into that war unnecessarily. But you see, these are the way nations think. Because they thought it was not going to be all the challenges we are facing today in terms of the hike in prices, apart from the devastating effect of COVID-19, the Russian-Ukraine war has harmed more people globally than anything else. And who is the architect of this war? Is actually NATO, driven by Europe. So this is the thing that we're looking at in a world of fairness where everybody is equitable and people are not just thinking about their interest alone, but factoring in the interest of the other people so that there can be mutual benefit in terms of global trade.
You know, Priyo was saying he hopes that the president of China, Xi Jinping, will actually listen to your reasoning. We appeal that every head of state and every president is listening to us on the table, as well as they're listening to the DG of the WTO, and then they allow good reasoning come into play, even as they think of what policies to make in retaliation to the U.S. trade policies. Well, before we call it a wrap on today's edition, which happens to be the finale for the week, just to look again at some comments from our YouTube channel. Someone says, Dear Okonjo-Iweala, we miss you. Remember Nigeria in your monetary prayers. Okay, and someone, the Scott Doctor, says, Dr. Idahosa is talking about a word where every nation cares and not about personal interest. Sir, I think you are defining heaven. Here we have jackals and vultures. Doug, how do you respond to that? They say that you're talking about a word where every nation cares and not about personal interest can only happen in heaven.
I think we can make it work here. We can balance those interests, and that's why I try as much as possible to use the Alfred Nobel analysis. And what that just means is that nations build their capacity, do things themselves, and once you get to a certain level of strength, in international politics, and I think Priya knows this, they call it mutual assured destruction. Mm-hmm. And when we get to that point of mutual assured destruction, everybody will behave.
And even when sometimes certain policies are made, there could also be collateral damage. So maybe at this time, the world has to heed the admonition of the mother of the economy, who is Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, the mother of the global economy, and maybe some shooting of the sword might be okay, but you know, sometimes...
Yeah, but it was also good that we all celebrated that she got a second term.
Oh yes,
and,
oh yes.
Africa is still to count his gain.
And that's why,
she should actually speak for Africa.
And that's why Governor is saying that she should remember Nigeria in her monetary prayers.
Yeah, and I think it's important so that African has been the whipping boy of the continents in the world, and this is the right time for her to also speak for economic justice for Africa. There's a whole lot of pillaging and of course of the African continent, and there's no reciprocity in terms of reparation or even due compensation for what Africans are due for. And I think they only hang it on corruption, which of course again is perpetrated from the other side. So be our eye there, speak for us, and when Africa is good, the world will be better for it.
Well, we hope that good word actually happens. But, you know, if one is saying, let's protect our own, others might be saying, okay, wait till we can protect our own. It's an unfolding drama, and we'll bring you more updates as the world looks at how the reaction to the U.S. trade policies will be. I'm Blessing Eichie. Thank you for being with us Monday till now. We ask that you do this with us again Monday, 7 a.m. West African time, when the front burners light up again. You can also go back now and comment if you haven't shared your perspective regarding the issues shared today. From Priya,
Oh, yes. I'm glad it's Friday. And like Doc said, I don't pray that we get to that place where we can have the MAD, mutually assured destruction, because of the stance of America, tariff, and world trade. I'm Oyinpreye, Krumale. Do have yourself a splendid weekend.
Doc, won't you say something to your fellow Americans?
To the ever bubbling young population of Africa, the colony is in your hands.
I thought you were going to
We're
say
here
Americans.
to shape it so that you can learn and see how we can drive the conversation that Africa can become the next driver of global politics and economy.
We'll see you Monday. Bye.